Well, this is disturbing. So, what I wanted to talk about today was an article over on the Epoch Times that says educational earthquake disappearing the great writers from schools. Orwell's warning in 1984 is as relevant today as it was during the Cold War. From Barbara Kay. And basically, what the article, which is in the description, I'll let you go ahead and read it, goes over is the fact that books like George Orwell's 1984 and Animal Farm are starting to disappear from school curriculums over in England. And I would think that it would actually be similar here in the United States as well. I first read Animal Farm in high school, and I've done videos on Orwell before. It's been a couple years, but I did them. And basically what I talked about was the fact that Orwell as a writer was as relevant today as always, and is relevant with every single political shift that ever happens. Because what 1984 is a warning about authoritarianism, about the idea of government taking control of every element of your life, and what it will do, and what the tactics are of the people who do it, and whether it's people on the extreme right, so the fascists, or the extreme left, the communist types, Antifa, some of the people that you see on campuses teaching that were influenced by the Frankfurt School, and so on and so forth. These types use very similar tactics to one another. And when you look at that, there's a lot of similarities in the sense that there's always a public enemy that is the demonized thing that everyone rallies behind. You know, when it came to Germany, it was the Jews. When it came to Russia, it was the proletariat. You know, and similar in China and things like that. In North Korea right now, we, the United States, are the great Satan. You know, we are the Emmanuel Goldstein of that nation. And I know I'm getting a little political here, but there's a reason that this needs to be emphasized. Books like 1984 and like Animal Farm, but also Huxley's Brave New World and other dystopian fiction is good to read when young, because we as a people should never get too comfortable with government trying to run everything. We should always value our own personal liberties. And oddly enough, I actually started thinking about Huxley when I started taking these. Am I getting, and one constant worry about myself, these are hemp gummies for those wondering, is do we rely too much on chemicals and not enough on our own personal strength to carry us through the day, mentally speaking, But there's a lot of questions about mental health we still need to answer. But the thing about Huxley was people were so drugged up and relying on it just to get through the day that there was no real problem solving that these people had the ability to do. It was just always orgy porgy and drugs, and that was it. Completely dousing themselves in pleasure. Animal Farm is obviously a commentary on the Soviet Union. Now, why on earth would an education system try to eliminate these? Well, I'll explain this briefly, and we'll go ahead and draw this to a close, is that you have to keep in mind more and more education is more and more controlled by the government. Governments are self-sustaining, and they always want to be self-sustaining. They will do whatever they can to keep themselves in power, especially if it's run by a bunch of unelected bureaucrats. And when it comes to the education system, it is completely and totally dominated by public education in Europe and here in the United States. And it's uncomfortable when you think about it because they can force you to do anything. They can force you to believe whatever, and that is not good. That is not something that is good. We should be allowing books, and we should be emphasizing books like 1984, like Animal Farm, to be read by teenagers. They should absolutely read them, so when they become adults, they understand the importance of their own liberty and the importance of their own freedoms. But people don't want that to happen. They want to force people to read books that focus on events that happened years ago, such as slavery and, things that were done to the Native Americans, like the Trail of Tears, without also thinking that that personal liberty matters. But there's nothing wrong with teaching about the evils that mankind has done before. History plays a part. But literature like 1984, like Huxley's Brave New World, like Animal Farm, are also based on historical mistakes that have been made and we continue to make in certain areas. The idea of knowing and seeing examples and dramatic examples of how bad government can be regardless of the leadership is something that we should all take part in reading. And any government education system that tries to rid the world of the words of George Orwell is one that is more interested in keeping its own power than the ability for its own people to think for themselves. My name is Micah Curtis, former video game journalist, current comic book writer, and your favorite vanilla gorilla. I'll see you next time.